so last album, and this is an album called Hope Rituals by a band called Waco. It came out on the 3rd of July. It's 11 tracks and about 37 minutes long. Waco are a 4-piece band formed of members from Yorkshire, Jersey and Teesside areas of England, and they describe themselves as cosmic rock or super rock, heavily influenced by 70s classic rock bands. Interestingly, Waco's frontman, who's for some reason I've not written his name down here, is
Jack Hutchcraft.
What's that?
Jack Hutchcraft.
Jack Hutchcraft. He's actually
is that a real name?
I don't know. Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So anyway, he's a sort of gonzo music journalist who's written for the likes of Vice and Kerrang magazine. So this is their second album. The debut came out in late 2019, and unfortunately, in the aftermath of the death of their former bassist Chris Cowley in 2018, which delayed the release of that album. And I admit I haven't really had the chance to go back and listen to that one. I've had a quick skip through it, and it sounds relatively similar to what's offered on this new album. So, my overall impression of this is that it's much more than cosmic rock or 70s inspired classic rock. Is going to the impression you would get from hearing those is very different than what's really on this album, I would say. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what to expect, because I hadn't listened to their stuff before. But I suppose much like the kind of Moonlands, the Edinburgh-based band that we reviewed in the last episode of the podcast, they immediately reminded me of the Bright Light Social Hour. There's a huge range there, or certainly the kind of first few tracks did, but there was times where they also reminded me of, or some of the tracks in the album reminded me of Black Mountain's Wilderness Heart as well. There is some straight up punk songs in there as well, though. Like Physio sounds very much like something that Ian Mackay from Corky would have done way back when, with the likes of kind of Minor Threat with kind of added electronic flourishes.
Physio's a full-on hardcore punk song.
Yeah, but there's also like a bit of disco in there as well. I don't know if you got that from, what track is it? Track number 3, Learn to Live Again. I've kind of described that as a 70s disco-esque infused gem.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I've sort of described it as something, sound a bit like something Blondie could have written back in the day. It's got, I can see the sort of disco element. It's like that 70s sort of new wave punk. But yeah, that's a really cool track. Like it just sounds like a Blondie song. But with
that's what I've said. That the kind of opening driving drum being commanding guitar riff. I've described it as being kind of reminiscent of kind of Blondie's Atomic.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's lots of different stuff on here. I mean, the opening track, Wrecking Ball. To be honest, I perhaps wouldn't have chosen that as the opener to the album. It's a sort of bubbly indie rock song.
Yeah, I mean,
it's slow in its pace. It's got quite a good chorus, and it's a good song. It just didn't, for me, like when I first put the album on, heard that, I was like, yeah, this is all right. But it was like the next track, I was like, actually made me stop and listen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think it was the best choice as an opener. It's a good song, but the following track, "Good Days," is more like a scrappy. It starts off like a sort of scrappy punk rock song with that kind of, I've been having those good days, bad days, good days. That's the way it is, and that's been stuck in my head for weeks now. Like, I just catch myself like walking about just singing that away to myself, and but it's it then explodes into like a big Wild Hearts like esque chorus, like, and there's sort of like a Van Halen kind of poppy bounce to the guitars in the verse. Just, you can kind of see where some of that classic rock influence is coming in.
It's interesting because I mean I kind of listened to the album after reading up about the album, I suppose. So I was aware of their previous bassist, Chris Cowley's death, and I know that the lead vocalist Jack Hutchcraft commented that, you know, for a long while after kind of Chris's death, the band kind of felt they didn't feel very creative at the time and weren't too sure if the band were, you know, going to continue, but fortunately they decided to channel their emotions and creative energy into something new, i.e. this album, and I think it's pretty safe to say that you see a lot of that kind of being played out in terms of the kind of lyrical content on the tracks in the album. Even the artwork, for example, which is entitled, well, the album's artwork, which is entitled "We Are Starcraft," is by We Are Stardust, sorry. StarCraft's a fucking game. But yeah, We Are Stardust is by an artist by the names of James McCarthy, which is purposefully chosen by the band because they believe it demonstrates themes of rebirth, transition and hope. And I think for me, the first track in the album, Wrecking Ball, as you said, I think that was probably chosen deliberately.
Yeah, now you put it that way, yeah.
Because it kind of opens with this kind of almost flamenco style, or what I've described as this kind of almost flamenco style guitar flourish, and the lyrics are kind of "Welcome to the new age, a time of great change," and I never felt this way before. Listen to my body talk. It screams, to all the battles I've fought, there's a part of me that I can't ignore, which for me feels very much like a kind of declaration of intent and probably acknowledges all that type of stuff that preluded the creation of the album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of speaks of, you know, a band or artist that has kind of been through their struggles, been through their hurt, but they're not going to be defeated by it. You know, I mean, some of the lyrics, I suppose, on the face of it, might come across as being quite macabre or depressing. Kind of talks about finding somebody dead in their bedroom, but you know, it's anything but. You know, I mean, the whole album feels really optimistic, feels really hopeful, really quite uplifting. You can't help but want to dance along to a lot of these tracks. And as you mentioned, kind of track number 2, "Good Days," I feel as if that kind of continues along the same sort of theme, with lyrics such as good days are getting more frequent. I'm waking up with a smile. One day this will all disappear. Right now I feel so alive. It includes, as you said, this kind of really raucous punk pub rock-esque chorus, which you can't help but sing along to. It's kind of guaranteed to have kind of gig goers poking along to it. Again, it feels really optimistic, uplifting. Yeah, and there's kind of repetition of these kind of themes and mantras that, you know, that are not all unusual in kind of my line of work, to be honest. So again, I think there's a definite theme that runs throughout the course of the album.
Yeah, there's lots of like socially conscious lyrics and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
There's a song, "Dark Before the Dawn," and it's like, you know, the lyrics are, "It is dark before the dawn," which sort of suggests, you know, positivity, and it talks about, you know, we're all one with the earth and the animals. So, you know, we should be looking after our planet and all this kind of stuff. So there is lots of positivity on there. I think, you know, they're a band that's experimenting because there's lots of different stuff. You know, we've mentioned punk rock and sort of indie rock, and there's the track Barracuda is pretty much a Pink Floyd song.
Right, yeah.
The opening. It's also got a really cool moment on there. I suppose it's the chorus, which sounds like Black Sabbath. And there's probably my favourite song on the album is called Busy Living, which just almost like a fairly fun rock song. Some you might hear from bands like Fountains of Wayne or something like that, but it's got this absolutely massive fist clenching chorus which goes, somebody told me to get busy living, and it's like living, and it's just like I say, it's a massive fist clenching chorus, and it's impossible not to join in with it. And it's like, it always reminded me of when, like, back being in like in a club or something, not like a sort of dance club, but just like a general bar / club, when they put on stuff like, like Boston's More Than a Feeling or Starships We Built This City or Van Halen's Jump, even like that kind of caliber of like big chorus that gets everybody on their feet. And Busy Living particularly feels exactly like one of those songs. Yeah, that's the big highlight for me on this album. I don't tend to put tracks on repeat very often, or listen to specific tracks over and over again on an album, but I've been doing that with Busy Living, so which is unusual for me, but it just shows the quality of that song, how fun it is. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the Wild Hearts before. There's more of that on the song Watch the Skies. And there's even elements of like bands like The Replacements, that kind of stuff. And there's like a really familiar chord progression that is on the song that I couldn't figure out what it was, but I'm pretty sure now that it's Dire Straits' Sultans of Swing.
Right, okay. I'll have to go back and listen to it.
What's that?
I'll have to go back and listen to it and see if I can pick
it's
that.
just sort of near the end. It's not the whole song, it's just this one bit. And every time I heard it, I was like, what is that? I know what that is. And I'm, it might not be exactly the same, but
yeah, similar.
Very, very similar. And it was really annoying me until like 2 seconds before we started recording this. It's like, that's what it is. But if it's not, then, whatever. But that's what I think it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some stoner rock on here as well. I mean, Great White Wall of Voodoo, more in the vocals than anything else, sounds a bit like the band Monster Magnet, if you've heard them. There's a really good gang vocal call and answer section on there. And I don't actually know what the lyrics are. I just know the first part is feeling like Hercules, and the second part is like something like I'm surfing on lead mercury or something like that.
I certainly heard the Hercules in it. I'm not too sure about the rest of it.
But I couldn't find the lyrics, so I'm just gonna have to keep singing I'm surfing on lead mercury until I find out what the real ones are. But I think that again, that's got some sort of quite socially aware kind of lyrics in it, about sort of looking after our planet and stuff like that. But I think I just like the level of variety and musicianship, and I think there's lots of guest vocals and things on here.
Right, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
I haven't really written much down, but when I say guest vocals, I don't think there are people that we would necessarily know who they are, but they've brought people in like to do some of the female backing vocals and like the spoken word, like Spanish section at the start of Busy Living, and various bits and pieces like that, which the band have been sharing on their Facebook and stuff over the last couple of weeks, I think. So it's just a really cool album. And I think you mentioned that you had sort of read about the album prior to listening to it, and I
Yeah.
went completely cold, so I was really pleasantly surprised. Just especially with following my kind of initial thoughts on Wrecking Ball, being like, yeah, this is all right, and then after I'd finished the album, I was like, this is fucking great. Yeah. So I would urge anyone to just put it on, and see what you think about it without any real. Well, now that we've talked about it, if you've heard this, that's out the window, isn't it? It's around it. I don't know how to rectify that.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Travel backwards in time in your DeLorean, just to a point before you listen to this. Doesn't have to be very far. And then listen to Hope Rituals by Waco, and then you can come back to this afterwards.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'd kind of read about the album, and I'd read the descriptions about them being kind of cosmic punk and super rock and stuff like that. But that doesn't really set you up for what they actually sound like. You know what I mean? What those terms really mean. You know what I mean? Sorry, man. What were you saying?
Just agreeing with you, man. It doesn't set you up for what this sounds like at all.
It's definitely an album to be experienced, and one that I definitely think I'll kind of be going back and kind of listening to. As you said, there's definite Pink Floyd, Blondie,
Atomic Kitten there.
Atomic Kitten vibes all over this album. I meant to say Blondie, but I was going to say Atomic. But yeah, sort of like Blondie, post-punk. There's a bit of everything in there. You know what I mean? The last track on the album, what's that called again? A New Future. Yeah. Which I think kind of given the kind of theme, the overall theme of the album, is probably quite apt. I've described it as being a 7 minute 6 second Frankenstein monster of kind of classic rock and roll, tongue-in-cheek poppy, shalalas, smattering of indie and alternative sensibilities with an uplifting ending. And I think there's bits like that littered throughout the album.
Yeah, I was a bit worried, like when I first heard, because the previous track is If is like an acoustic ballad, and then A New Future opens like an acoustic ballad, and I was a bit like, are we getting 2 acoustic ballads in a row? But then it turns into something completely different.
Yeah. To be fair, If is probably my least favourite track on the album.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It does just feel a wee bit out of kilter with the rest of it, to be honest. But
yeah, overall a pretty good album, and I've gone for an 8.
I've agreed, man. 8 out of 10.
But Busy Living's a 10.
Well, I suppose it's worthwhile saying that Busy Living is the name of a kind of mini EP that they released.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So that it's Dark Before the Dawn, Busy Living, and the second track on the album, Good Days.
All right, cool.
Were all released as a kind of mini album or mini EP on the 20th. Well, maybe it wasn't. I'm pretty sure it was released as a mini album or EP anyway, and the kind of all of the proceeds from that went to the NHS charities.
All right. Okay. Cool.
So that's quite cool. Yeah.
All right. So that was Hope Rituals by Waco.
Bad days, good days, that's the way it is. Tough, it will be tough. I need you, I don't want. Let's talk about optimism, 'cause ideas and dreams, they can actually change. Somebody told me to get busy, live Give me physio, give me physio, give me physio.